Lieutenant Mike Zullo is a former law enforcement office criminal investigator for New Jersey, trained in fingerprint identification, narcotics investigations, homicide, domestic violence, etc. He joined Sheriff Joe Arpaio's Maricopa County Sheriff's Cold Case Posse in 2005 when he moved to Arizona. Lieutenant Zullo has been commander of the Cold Case Posse for the past 7 years and is Sheriff Arpaio's lead investigator to reveal any and all evidence to determine if President Obama's identification document is valid. It was their goal to clear the document as authentic and move the country forward. And I've talked to people that were there, like Sheriff Mack, who was being asked first to do this, and it was just so many constituents. He said, okay, I'll do it. Guys, I'm sure this isn't true, because I know people that were there at the meeting. And then they're like, no, it's fake. And it's like, oh, no. And that's why the Justice Department's come after him now. You've seen all this. And again, we don't even know, from my research, who Obama is. 3 aliases, proven, record sealed, hanging out with a communist pornographer that looks just like him, that his grandfather would bring him to in the summers. I mean, just his wife saying in all these speeches he's from Kenya, born there, in the Harvard Review as the head lawyer, as the head of the Harvard Review, saying that he was from Kenya, his book deal proposal saying he was from Kenya, and then saying, you're crazy if you say that. I believe more and more now that it is Dreams of My Real Father, the film, that shows who his real dad was, that was another cover. So from my view, we don't know who he is. We know he's lying. We know there's a cover-up. And you're a detective with a distinguished background. You've been burrowed into this now for several years. You were already there on the cold case, dealing with serious crimes, Mike. So you didn't even ask for this. It was thrown in your lap by Sheriff Arpaio. So break down the saga, what it's been like, what's going on, the certified people that you've had, some of the top forensic experts in the country, the criminal case that's coming up in the Supreme Court of Alabama. From as best you know, what's going on here, and what should the viewers know out there, the listeners know, because you know what MSNBC is going to do. They'll probably play a clip of this and go, they're crazy, and they're saying our dear leader is a fraud, but that's all they say. They say we're crazy. What's really going on?
Well, Sheriff Arpaio did take this on, and we really went in there with the intention that this thing isn't going to be anything. Let's go in, let's clear the document, move the country forward. That was what the sheriff wanted. And it was like 24 hours later, I had to call the sheriff and say, we're going to have a problem here. We're 21 months into this now, and I can tell you this. We believe 100% that the document is a created, 100% fabricated birth certificate. It is not real. As a matter of fact, to use the word document is erroneous. It is a PDF file. It never started its life as a paper document. It was built inside a computer. Other documents were scanned in, and pieces of those documents were then utilized to create this fabrication. It's the only birth certificate I'm aware of that has 9 links and 9 layers. The only document that I'm aware of that the registrar stamp that gives its official authenticity has been imported into that document. It comes in vertical, it's rotated 90 degrees horizontal and placed on the document. And you can move it all over the place. That document is a forgery. And if that document is a forgery, what was offered to the American people is absolutely nothing, Alex. What it really says is there is no proof on that birth narrative. There's no proof that Obama Sr. is the father, and there's no proof that Stanley Ann Dunham is the mother. There's no other information to back up those claims.
And it goes on and on. As you know, the State Department had the fake dad, who looks nothing like Obama, thrown out saying it's a sham marriage, he's not the dad. I mean, that's mainstream news. It just goes on. I remember 4 years ago, they're going, he wasn't named Barry Soetoro. That's a conspiracy. Now it's like, oh, yeah, my name was Barry Soetoro. Oh, yeah, I went to this mosque. Oh, my name was, he's got all these weird names. Bottom line, I know you're a detective, you deal with facts, but why is it so fake? What do you think's going on? Is it meant to be a diversion? What is it?
I don't really think it's meant to be a diversion, and I've heard that argument. What I think happened here, I think somebody either made a mistake or in haste, they put out the wrong file. And when it hit the internet through the White House servers, it was about 20 minutes. 130,000 some odd people had downloaded.
They didn't flatten it. They didn't flatten it.
They didn't flatten it. It was done in error. Now they have to live with this. And if you notice the way they've been handling this is they don't say anything about it. They let the little minions do it. I think there's something very nefarious going on here. And I think I think part of the reason why you see no action on it, which is, you've been saying for a long time, I think NSA is the reason why you see no action on this. I think they've got dirt on people that they shouldn't have any.
Well, that's now coming out, yeah.
Well, you can control a lot of people with that kind of stuff. This needs to go to Congress. That's what Sheriff Arpaio has been asking for, and I'm in the process of trying to get it there. And in your great state of Texas, we have Texas Congressman Steve Stockman, who has expressed a lot of interest in this. And I believe, Steve, once I sit down and really dissect this topic with you, I think he's going to take some action.
Man, he's a great guy.
I love Steve.
It's so weird that it's like Texas that's resisting everything. And then now the Democrats are in the news saying, we're going to take over Texas. Here's the headline where they say that, we're going to turn it into a blue state. And I'm not even a big Republican. I'm more of a libertarian, but it's really creepy to see how they're intimidating the press, they're intimidating the media, they're trying to intimidate Arpaio.
Yes.
And even liberals I know go, oh yeah, Obama kind of is a thug. And look at his attorney general and now they're talking about arresting Rupert Murdoch. And I mean, if they start arresting the heads of even mildly conservative media, this is like turning into Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia or something. I mean, it's reaching the threshold of ultra over-the-top creepy.
Well, and I'll tell you that Rupert Murdoch, and I know you know Jerry Corsi very well. When I was working closely with Jerry on this in the beginning, Jerry received information of what was going to happen to Rupert Murdoch, and I am watching it unfold. So this stuff is in a mix. These guys are planning things out. They are taking actions that have been designed months, years ago.
Yeah.
Putting into play.
Exactly. I mean, I literally have no dirt on me. I don't even speed anymore. And we've got bureaucrats and harassment I don't get into on air coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden. It's exactly what the head of WorldNet Daily said, Joseph Farrell, last year. Because I never got persecuted like this by Bush, and I was critical of him. I mean, people do not understand this is a criminal operation. And I don't know, you don't want to prejudice yourself probably agreeing with that. It's just that I'm getting to the point where, getting back to the birth certificate, going over this criminal complaint, what's the greatest hits of this document that people should know about and where this is going?
Well, you have a document that's comprised of 9 layers, and what it was really designed to do, the intent of it is to deceive. The intent of this document was to fool the unsuspecting public, to give you a document, and I do believe it was a precursor to Jerry Corsi's book, Where's the Birth Certificate? I believe they were concerned that book was going to come out, and they launched this document. But what this really says is, we don't really care what we show you. We're just going to show you something, and we're going to expect you to believe it. And if you look into his narrative, that's everything you've been fed. You see photographs, you're told these are the players. You see a photograph, you're told this is where I was or this is who I was sitting with, and you're expected to believe this. But when you start looking at some of those photographs themselves have been digitally altered. So everything about this is a facade. When you try to work the background of this individual, the trail goes cold. You can't find certain information. Certain information has either been now scrubbed or it's been locked away where you can't get to it. The fate of this birth certificate coming out the way it did, if they had flattened this document, probably the only argument would have been the fonts, and it would have gone nowhere because every document examiner tells you, we can't tell you that unless we see an original. Our document examiner, who happens to be a court-certified 20 years in business, actually worked for Perkins Coie as a certified document examiner. This is the law firm that represents Obama on every one of these issues.
Wow.
Going to be difficult for them to overcome that. And when he tells you it is a 100% fabrication, you can take that to the bank. It's a 100% fabrication. So the implications to this are huge. And the reason why I don't really think that this was some kind of joke is the penalties for this under U.S. code, under U.S. statute, they're up to 20 years in prison. The manufacture, the display, the passing on of this kind of document, you're looking at some serious jail time. Now, you go back into the way this document was released, and they set up Mr. Obama with plausible deniability.
And it was done clearly in response to Jerry Corsi's book coming out the next week. I mean,
I do believe that.
It was so obvious, and the media was all poised to attack and slander and say the book had been recalled when it wasn't. You could see a clear psyops. You don't do that against something that is a fraud. Right. You only act like that when you're scared to death.
Exactly, and I really do believe it was a preemptive strike trying to neutralize that book. And as as Jerry could attest to, because we received the same information, it was not 24 hours after the release of this birth certificate, mainstream media, Fox News, nobody would talk about this issue anymore. And I have individuals, and I cannot divulge who they are for fear of their losing their occupation, in that genre that told me straight out, we were threatened. If we talk about this any longer, we're going to be fired. Oh,
I talk to press all the time that get threatened. They're told point blank, don't even criticize Obama.
So you don't have a free press anymore. When you don't have a free press, how do you vet a president? This man has never been vetted. This man has never gone through the ringer of being vetted. You know, and with Sheriff Arpaio, it's kind of like a joke in his office. I say, you know, Sheriff, he can't pass the background check to be the janitor in your jail.
Well, that's what I want to talk about when we come back. I've read a lot of history, and I've read a lot of Cold War stuff, and the only time I've seen backgrounds with people, to use a fiction account, is like No Way Out with Kevin Costner. The only time you've got backgrounds this shaded and different things is when it is a sleeper cell foreign infiltrator. Now he could be a corporate infiltrator, whatever he is, but I've never seen somebody that has a Manchurian Candidate cutout. And you only see this with somebody that is an operative of something. And so it's really scary, because I didn't really get into the birth certificate thing and cover it until I saw that fake. And then I said, oh my gosh, this is all real. Mike Zullo's our guest. Stay with us. Well, we got the head of the cold case Posse, went out there in 2005 to help, investigate for Sheriff Arpaio all these stacks of murders. And I'd love to get you on sometime for like 2 hours on the nightly news just to talk about all the other cases you've been on, because it's so interesting about digging through cold cases and going after, stuff that other people have given up on. But you look at this. We were talking during the break about the fact of, hey, you better get life insurance, vice versa, and the type of stuff that goes on, because people don't know how real this is until you get the harassment. But I was saying during the break, I think we see the takeover happening. You were like, yeah, no, it's happening right now with the persecution of the press and the not caring. I mean, where do you think this country's going?
I'm afraid to think about that. I think we are at a critical point, and I think you are seeing, and I think you've said it before, people are starting to wake up, but they got to pick up the pace. I mean, we have some really bad problems. I mean, you have situations here where you could almost look at it as the police are becoming an extension of this. There are rights being violated all over the place. Constitution is meaning nothing. The whole incident down in Florida right now, man is demonized for carrying around in the chamber of a 9mm. That's no different than a guy having a 5-shot revolver. There's rounds in the chamber. It's
exactly.
But this is what they do. They take it and they start with these themes, and they keep perpetuating these as if they're truths, and they're not. They're fables. So we're in a really difficult place, and I think the battle is really for the mind, because if they can convince you of things, they could give you scenarios where you have to give up your rights and slowly give up your rights. We all know what the Founding Fathers said about that.
And they just announced now the CIA is going to domestically engage in propaganda covertly.
That's what I heard.
I mean, they're just putting it all out now. It's like, yeah, we'll arrest you and disappear you. Yeah, we'll kill you. What do you think about Michael Hastings' car blowing up? He says, I'm going on the run. I've got something that's going to bring him down. The FBI's visiting, and it turned out I've talked to the family off record, so they all got visited. And the FBI's like, we didn't visit anybody. And then the car blows up. The engine goes the opposite direction.
Well, I haven't had any information on that except what I've been told. And what I'm told is it looks like the automobile came and rested upon that tree.
Yes.
That there was no real front-end damage. So that makes it very difficult for me to think how a complete engine goes 350 feet the other way. I mean, something happened there, especially that he was making those kinds of telephone calls. My bigger concern is, like Breitbart. Breitbart, he had something other than what we've been shown.
Oh, he said it's going to bring him down.
And
that's the biggest thing ever.
And that's never surfaced. So,
well, isn't it a telltale when he's been dead 45 minutes and somebody in the hospital says no foul play, and then the coroner dies of arsenic poisoning? The guy that did his body.
I know, they're things that it's very difficult. From our business, we work in facts and evidence and proof. So for us to speculate is dangerous, but I will tell you, that's strange.
Well, when it starts piling up.
It does. It does. And when it starts piling up like that, all of a sudden, when something's a coincidence, you get a onesie or a twosie, not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those aren't coincidences anymore. Somebody is doing something on purpose. Something is happening here. Something's been orchestrated.
Exactly. If you had one hit and run out in the country of, say, an old lady, okay, hit and run. But if you had 5, well, we've got a serial killer.
Exactly.
I mean, it's obvious. It's
obvious. It becomes obvious. And there are things that happen in these situations where you could almost mirror them. in other ones. You know, there's always the precursors. Who says what? Who says he's going to do this? And all of a sudden he disappears. You know, so you have to be mindful of that. But, you know, this is real. This is not a fake game that's being played here. And that birth certificate, that is nothing more than an error. They released that in error. And I think the American people have the right to know who their president is and where he was born.
One of our reporters, Gigi Arnett, went out to L.A. and actually went to the tree. It's barely damaged. We just showed some footage of it. And then Nomi Prinz, who lives out there, also a journalist, she said she went and looked at it the day after, and it was barely even scratched. And that's what the photo showed as it came to rest. The witnesses all said it blew up in the middle of the road. So if my car blows up like that, I want an investigation.
No, I would think so. And what's great about that, you know, eyewitness testimony, you know, you could have 5 people witness the same accident, and they always see something different. They're never 100% in sync with each other. But the main event usually is. And when you've got witnesses, more than one, telling you this thing blew up before it hit the tree, you could take it to the bank. It blew up before it hit the tree.
I described it as a jackknife with an 18-wheeler. That's different, but basically it went up in the air and then flew over up against the tree, and the engine shot the other direction. I'd have to have a demolitions expert on, but that almost sounds like a bomb on top of the engine, because it would blow down, blowing the engine out towards the back, and then the car, and that's all kinetic. I guess you'd have to talk to a physicist.
Yeah, I'm not the guy that does that. You know, our explosive experts may have a different opinion, but
sure, but if you hit a tree, the engine doesn't blow out the back.
It doesn't blow out the back. No, and you have to hit it with some force to move it that far too, and you would have such front-end damage on that vehicle. Such damage to that tree. I mean, the tree is a tree, but it's wood. It's gonna be damaged, especially with that kind of impact. And if there is, like they say, nothing there, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Unbelievable. Let's come back and get more into this fraudulent birth certificate that you get out of a Cracker Jack box, and how we turn this country around with Mike. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll also give you the Cold Case Posse website on the other side. I'm going to take some calls. They're all over the map. David, Nick, Ryan, Ernest, John, everybody after Mike, Zullo, and myself sit here and have some time and talk about other issues. mcso.org, and that redirects to mcsoccp.org, and that is the Criminal Enforcement Special Services Cold Case Posse out of Arizona. And there's a lot of important things on that site, and it's also supported outside of the Sheriff's Department funding mechanism. So tell us a little bit about the Cold Case Posse and how people can support it.
The Cold Case Posse is a separate organization, if you will. It's a 501(c)(3). Our mission is to voluntarily help the Sheriff's Office, and we are in service to the Sheriff himself. Everything that we do, especially in this investigation, cannot be supplemented financially by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. That's what actually enabled this investigation to happen, because if Sheriff Arpaio had to use taxpayer dollars, they would have been on him in a minute to shut it down. So everything that we do, every trip that I take, every place that I go, we have to pay for it, is pay for it out of donated funds. So, you know, any donation, $5, $10, it'll... Absolutely.
And tell us about this criminal complaint. What's going on with this case in Alabama?
Alabama was actually an elections case that was done way before we got involved with the Alabama thing. What happened over there is, I guess, Judge Moore, the Ten Commandments judge, has got this now in the Supreme Court. And the Alabama Democratic Party put in what's called an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, and they attempted to put forth accusations against the evidence that was introduced by attorney Larry Klayman in this case regarding the birth certificate. So Mr. Klayman had called me up and he asked me if I would do him a favor and put together a rebuttal document, an affidavit about the investigation, what I could tell him at this point. And that's what I did. I believe that's about 30 pages, 100 some odd points of interest are in there. And I think it would behoove everyone who's watching this that has an interest in this, read this. This is a sworn affidavit that I submitted to a superior court. That means I could be held liable for perjury. If there's anything in here.
And then what's this criminal complaint I'm hearing about?
Well, the criminal complaint, we're trying to put together a criminal case, trying to bring about a criminal complaint. The problem with this is, you know, this has only come to us 21 months ago, and to everybody it seems like an eternity. But when you're trying to put together information like this to bring forth these kind of charges, you have normally the assistance of other law enforcement authorities, especially federal authorities. We don't have that in this. We can't call up the FBI and ask them for help.
No, you're having to go through hell just to get each little piece.
Every piece, and everything takes time. And
everything takes money.
money and time. And what I have to do is, you know, even like I think I told you earlier, you were the first video I ever saw of anything with this, and you guys were taking apart the document. Well, every step that you did, I have to times 3 go get that analyzed to make sure it's correct. And then we could put that into our report and use this information.
Well, that was just our quick analysis of it, dealing with videos, dealing with Photoshop, dealing with documents. We have some folks that have worked in documents, and we just knew when they said, oh, it's always in layers. It's not in layers unless it was originally in layers, meaning it's a made-up document. It'd be one layer. It'd be the image of the document, and then we saw the fonts and all of it and just said, this looks really suspicious. Were we accurate?
Yeah, you were accurate, very accurate. Especially the layering thing. You're going to have people try to put forth theories that the layering could be done because of automated processes and software. Well, we have extensively researched out. We put this document through 1,200 computerized tests, trying to get a replication of the Obama document, and you can't do it.
So they dropped the ball massively, and we do that all the time when we're doing an article and we think it's right, but we publish it and then it doesn't all go up, or there's a problem, or all of it, you know, and we're not doing fraud. It's just a bunch of articles and documents. It'll get scrambled. And then one time we had a bunch of traffic to the site. We couldn't get it down to put up the right one for like 2 hours, and people thought we put out a messed up document on purpose. But again, with this, they just jumped the gun, or what happened?
Well, I can't tell you what exactly happened there. What we know is this, that document sat in a Mac computer 20 minutes before it was uploaded to the White House website server in a program called Preview. And that's of a particular interest to us.
Because it has timestamps?
Yes, but Preview has a capability of erasing what's called metadata from other programs. So the other programs that were used to create that document, they suspected or thought that it was going to erase all that information, and all you're left would be is Preview and the PDF file itself. Our forensic experts were actually able to go in and find remnants of metadata that then told us what other programs were in fact used.
And for folks that don't know, it's just like photos on a card that get wiped. You can put them into a program that actually resurrects them.
Resurrects it. And so we know how the document was put together. We know what processes were done to put the document together.
That's in this document. Break down for folks that aren't experts in this, basically what was done.
Basically, the document started itself, like I said, as a computer file. What they did is they took other source documents. Now, you have to realize they took other birth certificates, real ones, scanned them into a computer, and then systematically took information from different documents to create the PDF image that everybody saw released when the president released it. They painstakingly lifted date stamps. They painstakingly lifted words and letters on words in a cut and paste fashion to lay this upon layer to give you an impression of a complete document when it was done, even going as far as replicating the green safety paper computerized. So they make it look to you as if this is real, but it's not. And when you take apart those layers, you could actually take those layers, turn them on and off, and you can see exactly what was moved.
Why didn't Obama or his people just go to the CIA that are experts in making documents fake that you can't even tell?
I'm thinking that this was done on a lower level than that. Let me say this. I am concerned that the person that may have put this document together for them may have been, and for lack of a better word, I mean, no disrespect to nobody, where if something were to happen to that person,
Sure. You want to keep this close to your vest because this is blackmailable if you have an agency do it. That's why they always create corporations, private groups outside of it, so they can even keep that secret from the government.
Yeah. And you make something happen to that one individual that put it together, nobody's going to pay any attention to it. So
we should be looking, and I know that's what Dr. Corsi's been doing, at people in and around the White House that might have been falling down, hitting their heads.
Look at everybody. I read the paper every day looking to see if something happened to somebody. We have some people of interest, and we're keeping tabs on them. But this is, I think, something that started out very small, but has grown now.
Sure. How dumb would you have to be if they come to you and go, hey, you're good at Photoshop and have done some documents. Cut this up for us. I mean, you've got to know with a mafia like this, if there's ever a problem, you're going to be sleeping with the fishes.
Well, people do things and don't realize it. You know, first of all, if you got a big chunk of money or it's to help, you know, the man that you wanted to put in that White House, you know, people do things for the sake of just doing them. It's very strange to me. You know, but a lot of times people don't look at the other side.
Well, it's peer pressure.
Peer pressure and not knowing there's always another side to the coin. You know, if somebody's asking you to help them do something that may not be 100% legitimate, you know, you got to ask yourself why.
Shifting gears into the kind of stuff we have to deal with, because I guess you use the communist term, but from a libertarian perspective, fellow travelers, you deal with a lot of, you were telling me, stuff with the phone and harassment and things. Everybody does this, you know, trying to expose what's happening. But I think you made the point that you can clearly see they're going for it all. I mean, there's the feeling of, wow, nobody's stopping them. Everybody's scared and intimidated. They're going to go all the way. Can you elaborate on, just from your research and being, you know, in and around government and a detective from New Jersey, talking to other colleagues in law enforcement and people, are people as creeped out as I am or as creeped out as you are?
I don't think they are. I mean, people that have started to pay attention to this, yes. I think the scandals with the IRS, that's gotten people's attention. I don't even think they realize the severity of that. But when you have an incident like Benghazi and you can't get a special committee together to investigate that, there's a big problem.
That's blackmail.
Yeah, and people that are in law enforcement realize that that's a big problem. Fast and Furious, there are still people being shot with those weapons. And when you
a police chief last week.
Yes, and when you have an email that says we're going to use this to attack the Second Amendment, I think there's some statutes in U.S. code that talk about that.
Yeah, that's false flag. That's a frame up. I mean, that's premeditated racketeering. I don't.
And it's here, and it's here, and it's being done, and you know, it's almost hiding in plain sight, if you will.
Exactly. I've studied history, and that's the point. When a Hitler, when a Stalin, when a Mao can get away with anything, it always just, it's a criminal culture where all their minions now can't get in trouble. I mean, these guys are like invincible if we don't take them down. How do we, how do we stop them?
You know, I don't know if I have the answer to that question. I know that the upcoming elections are going to be very important, and I think that people are going to have to pay mind to, you don't want lip service anymore. You want to know what that candidate's going to do when you put them in there, because you don't need any more of this. You need people that are going to have the backbone to want to get to the bottom line and the answers to these things that have been happening and are willing to take the steps to prevent it from happening in the future. And I think, you know, our biggest problem right now, Alex, our voices are silenced. Our voices are silenced. If it wasn't for Steve Stockman, I don't know where we would go with this. I mean, that's one man standing up. He is going to need your support if he does what I believe he's going to do. Yeah,
do people get what we're going through? I'm not asking for people to go, oh, you're a hero. I'm asking for them to support us, because I have a compulsion to stand up against bullies my whole life. I'm not even some good guy. I just instinctively get angry about it. And everybody thinks, oh, we'll just go along, it'll be okay. No, then the dam breaks, the corrupt take over everything, the society collapses. We've got to have people stand up and support people when they go and do the right thing.
You have to. And right now I think you're seeing, you know, when you see the Republicans turn on the younger Republicans, or calling them wingnuts or whatever they've been calling them lately. You know,
Karl Rove.
Yeah, yeah.
They're scared of the real Tea Party people.
Yes.
So they've all got them surveilled. They know Steve Stockman's good.
Yeah.
They know Rand Paul's good. They know that Cruz is good, Ted Cruz. They know. That's why they've got the Republicans and Democrats circling the wagons. They've had internal tapes, as you know, a month ago come out of Biden to millionaire donors going, we got to do something about these real Tea Party people. We got to go after them. Because there's the answer.
Right. There's the answer, and you know what it is? It's people that are based in the Constitution. You know, that's the thing that's dying in this country more than anything else. It's our Constitution. You go back, and I remember growing up in New Jersey, that's basically a Democratic state, and we grew up fine. You know why? Because we may have differences from Republican to Democrat, but we had the Constitution, and that was the thing that held us together. They are eroding that. People don't even understand it anymore. They don't even know what's in it.
Well, they're abolishing it.
They are.
I mean, they've got a wrecking ball. They've already torn like half of it out, and now the second half's going to go faster than the first half.
That's the concern, and I think you can see that this is escalating. You know, you have the Justice Department now jumping into whatever happened down there in Florida. All of a sudden, we have a civil rights violation. You know, 10 years ago, that would just be what it is. A man defending his life. He was afraid for his life. Now we have a civil rights violation. I don't understand the thinking anymore. It's, if we don't get what we want in one court, we'll just find another court. We'll bring you through another court. We'll just do whatever we want to do until we railroad you. And to me, that looks like that's what's going to happen down there again. You know, you have to start to worry about that. You know, it's pretty clear when you have, for lack of a better word, a lynching And to me, that's what is going on here.
Speaking of that, I want to get to some callers on this subject, but people need to go to mcsoccp.org. That's the Criminal Enforcement Special Services Cold Case Posse. In fact, there's a shorter website. It's mcso.org, mcso.org, and donate today. And Lieutenant Mike Zullo is here with us today. And again, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to destroy everything. And I've been real critical of the Republicans because they're a mafia too, especially the old guard. But I'm telling you, this 2014 election coming up, I'm going to say this now. The Democratic mafia is going to take completely over. They're going for it all right now. You've got to vote Republican. And I've just got to that point realizing that you've got to vote for Tea Party people, real Tea Party people. The mainline Republicans have tried to take it over. They haven't been able to. Now they're trying to destroy it. You got to go after the Republicans that are working with the Democrats. And you've got to vote for real Tea Party Republicans. You've got to run yourself. We've got to block, because if they end up getting the House and they've got the trifecta, it's over. I mean, I'm telling you, they're going to bring in, they've already billed him as the new Lincoln, who's going to wage war and basically demonize anybody that's a constitutionalist as like some type of Confederate. That's the branding I already see.
Well, you know, and here's something that was just alarming to me. I've had the opportunity now to visit several Congress people in Washington, and I've heard this more than once. Republicans say they have no voice. They have no microphone in Congress. Now, if they're telling me that, if they don't have a voice, you don't have a voice.
Well, that's it. I mean, if the Republicans were running everything and doing this, I would say vote Democrat. Or I'd vote for something else. It's a separation of powers. It's we've got, I think that's why they're so arrogant, is that they just have gotten away with anything. What do you call that in criminology, where they get emboldened, or what's the...
You know, I don't remember the term. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. I don't remember the term, but they get so brazen about it because they feel like they're untouchable.
Untouchable's the word.
They get to a place where they can just do anything and know that you'll sit down like a lapdog and take it.
And I think what you said with the police, because so many police are still the bedrock of this country, but then other departments are going crazy. It's that rolling downhill, that arrogance, so that they're trying to recruit people that'll do whatever they're told.
Yes. Yes, they are. And, you know, you have bigger problems with this, too, is they start to desensitize you in areas that normally you would be affected by, you would react to. And they do it by, well, I think you have a video coming out here. It is psyops. It is ways of keep perpetually gaslighting you, if you will. Keep changing your altered perception.
So you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on.
I study this 18 hours a day. I'm obsessed with it. My wife's like, do you ever stop? You know, because I can't get out of it, because I realize it's a death struggle against tyranny. This is real. My life's on the line. This is real tyranny in America. There's no debating it.
Right.
And now it's like I'm even more upset because it's everything I've been validated, and you've been by all the stuff coming out, and people are like, aren't you feeling good? I'm like, no, I'm not feeling good. Now they're not even in trouble when it's all admitted.
Right, right. And, you know, you look at something as, and I don't want to minimalize it, but you look at something as simple as his birth certificate, and I can count on one hand the amount of news stations that have said they even question this versus the amount of times you're told you wear a tinfoil hat, this could never happen. You know, they do these things. Psyops. They plant them in the public's mind. And it's easier to believe the lie, Alex, than it is to believe the truth.
For folks that don't know what gaslighting is, it's a famous film, but it's based on real things that happen. It's like Stockholm Syndrome. There's been famous cases where a pimp will abuse and punch a woman in the nose, and she's bleeding. He goes, I didn't punch you, you're crazy. And someone that feels powerless, their mind will trick them, and they'll go, I did that to myself? Now people that aren't weak-minded, we go, how does that work? It's like hypnotism works on the weak-minded. America's hypnotized. I mean, that's really it.
Yeah.
How do you get them out of that?
Hypnotized, desensitized.
Yeah.
Well, they made a fatal mistake with the IRS thing. I think that wakes up a lot of people because that is something that people feel. And they're all afraid of the IRS. So that kind of woke them up a little bit.
And imagine going to people and saying, what do you pray at your church for the IRS?
I can't even believe that.
We're going to come right back with your phone calls, a little bit of overdrive, and then he's going to be... How long do you have till you got to get out of here?
I have as much time as you need.
All right, folks, I'll do about 5-10 minutes of overdrive the next hour to take the calls that are on the board on a host of subjects. But You really need to go to mcso.org and donate today. That's not why he's here. Notice he didn't even ask me to promote that or talk about trying to fund Sheriff Arpaio's separate group that he heads up, not just investigating the birth certificate, but a lot of other murder cases. You name it. Mike Zullo is our guest, mcso.org. But we were talking about mysterious deaths of Breitbart and people like that, and Hastings. And it's how the media is like, you shouldn't look at that. It's a conspiracy theory to even look at it. That just shows how they'll turn the other way if a bunch of people start getting killed.
I know. And
that's what you said off air, yeah.
Look, without the media, without a real outlet for people to hear and get truthful reporting, they are then ignorant of facts. They are ignorant of pertinent stories. And how could you expect someone who's ignorant of anything to, number one, take an action, come to their own conclusion, or know the difference between truth and deception? Ignorance is a killer. And until we figure out a way to change that, we are going to have a major, major problem in this country coming to any conclusion as a united body.
I don't want to have confrontations with the system because I get the average person and it's just brainwashed like the general public. But when the government's training and buying billions of bullets and 7,000 armored vehicles and all the rest of this, but you see the public buying 100 million guns since Obama got in and we know of, and everybody says, I don't trust it. People instinctively know this is a tyranny. I mean, I guess that's the last check is that. And I guess if it gets too bad, I hate to think what's going to happen.
Well, you know, Sheriff Arpaio has a tank. Sheriff Arpaio has a 50 caliber machine gun.
But he's elected locally.
But he's never going to use that stuff against his own people. And that's the difference here. You have to tell me, what is DHS? And
he needs it down there in that area. Yeah.
He does need it down there. What is DHS going to do with that kind of equipment? Who are they going to fend off? We have a military to protect the borders. Who are they going to use that against? Why are they acquiring that?
Well, they admit it's for the Tea Party. Their own manuals all say returning veterans, gun owners, libertarians, and the fetters, anybody who's really an American. I mean, let's face it. We're nothing special. We're just Americans. I mean.
You know, I say this to a lot of people now. What is the privilege that you have being a United States citizen, being a natural-born United States citizen? What are the privileges? Because you can't tell me that we have any, because you can just come over a border and get them here. You don't have to be a citizen to get these privileges.
You get almost more rights when you're not a citizen.
And so I know when my grandparents came here, they came here, went through the naturalization process, and became United States citizens. And because it meant something, you gained something. You gained those constitutional protections. Those are given to people now regardless of how they come over. Sheriff Arpaio, when he does those immigration sweeps and things that they criticize him about, let me tell you something. I've worked with those deputies, human smuggling deputies. I watched those deputies put their lives on the line, taking down coyotes, bringing over human traffic from Mexico, defending and protecting people from another country.
Most police just roll over now and take the money. Oh. I mean, look at what they've done in Mexico to the system. I mean, do we really want Mexico to collapse into us? This is madness.
Well, you know, the whole premise that I think is it's just one big open border. I think that's what everybody wants. And they're giving us the ruse.
Look at the signs up to 70 miles into Arizona saying, don't go into this area controlled by Mexican drugs. I stood
right next to those. And you look at...
That's the feds planting a flag saying drug cartels took this over.
Yeah, and they're facing inland from the border. They're facing to America telling you don't go in here. It's the United States property.
And then next it'll be 100 miles.
Yeah.
And then 200 miles. Yeah. And then 300 miles. And we're going to come back, take a few calls. Mike Zullo, amazing interview. I want to take a few calls because we've got to end this transmission. I apologize, some folks have been holding. But you just made a powerful statement during that break. But please say that again.
Well, we were talking, and I want to leave the impression, look, not everything is lost, Alex. You know, America right now is in deep. But I believe in the end, America is going to prevail. And I believe that the majority of Americans are God-fearing, Constitution-loving people. And I think to our benefit, we are slow to pick up arms. And I hope it never comes to something like that. We need to defend our Constitution now, bring back our liberties. And the only way you do it is you're going to have time in 214 and 216 to make the changes. And you have to get engaged on who am I going to elect and what is their podium? What are they standing on? What are they telling me they're going to
Absolutely.
do? And when they don't do it, You call them out on it and you change them out. Term limits would have solved a lot of this in Congress. If we had term limits, you couldn't get dirt and blackmail people because they're here and gone. So I think that this next 2 election cycles, and everybody says very important. No, these are critical. These are critical.
Matt Drudge says everything is 2014.
I think he's right. I think I never heard that from him, but I think he's right. I think it all hinges on 2014.
And it's so sick that this Democratic mafia is so bad. I've never been lesser of two evils. But it's clear they are making their move with Obama. The power structure behind things, they're making their move.
Yeah, and you could see, like you said earlier, it's an escalation. It's happening. There's so much news out there that it hits you, and it hits you so fast. And they are training Americans to settle for a 45-second to 1-minute news flash, some YouTube video, and you think you understand it all, and they bang you with something
Exactly.
else.
And see, I've gone through this for a long time, but I don't know if I can say it on air, but I mean, I get the phone calls, and they don't do it a lot now because they know it doesn't really work. It makes me work even harder, and gets my wife upset, and she gets behind me even more. But, you pick up the phone, and you're making a call and somebody's breathing on it. You said that's happened to you.
It's happened on my cell phone numerous times.
And I mean, they want you to know. People go, oh, you're hearing beeps and breathing. That's not how wiretaps work. No, they want you to know they're sitting there on your phone.
My cell phone once, I was driving down the street. I'm going to make a telephone call, and not even in the ringing stage yet. And I hear what sounds like a police radio come over my cell phone. I thought I had my radio with me. And I look in the car. It's not in the car. It was coming over my cell phone, and then it clicks off. Then into the call. The breathing. One sounded like someone sneezed. That there was nobody else on the phone but me. It was just really some weird stuff.
Well, no, wait till they tell you. Because they'll always wait till a family member's in the hospital or something. and I mean, this has happened to me and my wife. That's when you really know how evil they are.
Yeah.
And they call up and go, your husband's got me pregnant. My wife's like, I know this is bull. That's right. I hope your dad dies in the hospital right now.
Oh, God.
I mean,
my wife's not going to fall for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Because her dad had just gone to the hospital. Yeah. And they did it. I mean, it's like they're listening. And they wait till that emotional moment trying to make you melt down.
Wow.
I promised to do these calls. We'll do one more segment overdrive, 12 minutes. How's that sound? And then we'll go shoot for Obama deception. I don't want to wear you out here, but I get the idea you can talk quite a bit. Man, at least we're not buying the propaganda. At least we're alive. Do you really feel alive doing the right thing, though?
It's taxing. I mean, I'm sure you know that. It's taxing. It's something that in your heart you have to do. And it would be so easy not to.
It's a compulsion, though.
It is.
Could you control yourself and not do the right thing?
No. I have to do the right thing. I have to. I have to do what I believe in my heart is right. What I could lay my head on the pillow and know at least I tried to do something with it. I may not succeed, but at least I know I gave it everything I could give it.
Well, that's powerful, but it's like a good slavery to doing the right thing, because I am not in control of myself. I mean, I realize, and it's almost embarrassing to say, they could have guns to my kids' heads, and I might BS them and say, okay, I'll sell out, but I know I really wouldn't. I would turn right. I mean, I can't sell out. And that is a really weird feeling. We'll be right back with the final segment in Overdrive with our guest. We're going to give you the website, mcso.org. Get behind the cold case posse. It's run by a great guy. It's great meeting him in person. We'll be right back. Sheriff Arpaio, and then we're going to calls, gets demonized a lot. And I don't agree with him on everything he does, but I'm usually seeing it through a media filter. But now I know a lot of people I really respect, like Sheriff Richard Mack and so many others, that behind the scenes, I talk to people that are like know Arpaio and his neighbors, where he helps them change a tire 10 years ago, or is so friendly. And he comes off like a cartoon character, almost like a John Wayne type or something. But from what I've been told about him, that's really how he is. Is that accurate?
It is. I've gotten the privilege to know Sheriff Arpaio now for 2 years. I'm in his office all the time. And he is, number one, he's a cop's cop. He's a real human being. And the times I really appreciate it the most is when we're not talking business and we'll just be sitting there and we'll have a conversation. I mean, the man is brilliant. The man is a career law enforcement officer. He gets it. And he's one of the last of the old-time police officers. He's the rule of law kind of guy. You want him to stop enforcing something? Change the law. That's how he sees it. And they come down on him for enforcing the law. They try to make him erase this because he enforces the law. Let me tell you something about Sheriff Arpaio. He is an equal opportunity incarcerator.
Oh, I've seen that.
Doesn't matter.
But the state is collapsing. They put signs up 60, 70 miles in saying don't go into these areas. He's supposed to just throw up his hands and say, okay, illegals running drugs and stuff, you're above the law.
Well, that's what they would like him to do. That's something that he is not going to do. I mean, they've tried to stop him. They even have federal judges now trying to stop him. Look, I'm going to tell you something. Sheriff Arpaio, 52 years, you take this issue with this birth certificate, he wouldn't be having us doing what we're doing. He wouldn't stand out taking the position he's standing out. And if he didn't believe what we have is 100%, he's not going to throw away that career on this type of issue. He's not.
So it's the same thing. He knows it's right. He's got to do it.
He's got to do it. That's what he is about. This has to happen. This is what the law says. These are violators, and we have to do something about it. He doesn't selectively enforce. You can't.
Well, I always like it when I see the police arrest their own district attorney or the mayor drunk driving. I mean, that's good. And the mayor always says, you see it over and over again, you can't arrest me.
Yeah.
But then you learn about the cops that let him go.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of goes, it's just, I don't know. See, if I was a cop, I would let go a poor lady with 3 kids in the back who didn't have an inspection sticker out. I wouldn't let the mayor go. That's where I would have trouble, is writing tickets to people when their cars obviously out of inspection because they're going bankrupt. But then it just, I don't know how. It's a tough job. It's
a tough job, and there's discretion when it comes to that, issuing summonses. But when it comes to driving under the influence, I mean, it's zero tolerance. I mean,
or when it comes to shipping drugs in or whatever.
I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah, and then the banks are involved in it. Let's take a few phone calls here today, folks. Thanks for holding. These will be all over the map. David in Missouri, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call. It's funny because a lot of the previous callers and also your guests now are kind of touching on the things I wanted to bring up, and that's racism, right? Since slavery, black people have been used as a beta test to push on the general public. And now, and even in your shows in the recent weeks, Alex, you've been talking about police oppression, right? Where the checkpoints where they're pulling people out of their cars and all this stuff. Well, that's been happening to black people in this country for years now. I was born in the late 60s, and in a little bitty small town. And
well, let me just say this: I think it's poor people, period, because I've experienced, because generally you're going to have more crime in poor areas, and then poor people can't defend themselves, so bad police are going to get away with more. What is your take on how much of the persecution of black folks in this country is real versus what the Democratic Party hypes up because they can't deliver all the free stuff they've claimed, so they just make it all about race?
Well, I personally, my own personal view, I think a lot of it is real. I think a lot of it, has happened to some higher degrees in time periods than others. My own personal ideology about this is I can't look at that. I have to take you and deal with you based on your actions. Respect begets respect.
Exactly. And the big issue is if you throw minority people, especially, in jail for little bitty reasons when they're young, they're going to be put in a college of crime. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the cycle, too.
You would love to be able to go in there and change hearts and minds. I wish there was something that we can do to, and I don't want to say make them productive members of society. To me, that sounds so pompous. Make them better for themselves.
Regardless of what color they are.
I don't care. I don't care what you are. Look, everybody bleeds. Let me tell you something. I say this to a lot of people. If, God forbid, something was happening to your wife, some sinister thing was happening, would you care what the color of that cop was to stop that madman?
Well, it's the same thing I say. It's like when I look at children, I want to protect all of them.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't care what color they are. I mean, it doesn't matter. And so it transfers from there.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Everybody, we all bleed the same, brother. They have the same rights as I do.
It's all red blood. That's how we're.
That's how it works. That's how it works. To address this question, yeah, I believe there were, improprieties, if there's a way to say that, indiscretions and some very sinister acts at times. And I'm hoping that we're growing from that. I know that I can see it in my own children. They are brought up in a zero racial environment. They don't know the difference. You know,
well, that's because people, that's more people that are Christians and people from the 60s and folks that are doing the right thing. But now people are seizing it to reverse it back.
Yeah.
And then you've got little kids that aren't thinking racially about things, but then they're having it forced down on them that they're racist because they're 5 years old and they're white. So do you see what I'm saying, David?
Well, or they're just being exposed to it. My kids are biracial. I'm black. My wife is Colombian, but very, very fair skinned. They have no idea what it is. They have no idea what they don't see that color. But I'm sure when they're old enough and they're driving down the street or whatever, and they have a little bit more melanin in their skin, they're going to be treated differently.
Sure. Listen, I got to jump to other callers, but I hear what you're saying. But then it's not just the racism. Then it enters in the statistics of the poverty, whatever's happened in the culture, of the higher crime rates in those areas and those communities, which is a cycle. Then people get put in jail for no reason because statistically there's more crime in this area. And then they come out basically forced into a criminal system because now you can't get a job because you've got a criminal record. I mean, we've all talked about that cycle. Here's what I want to say. It's become a political diversion from all the other corrupt things that are going on to obsess over things that are a lot better than they used to be. That's my point. Let's go real fast here. John in Florida, thanks for holding her on the air.
Alex, I definitely want to say it's an honor to finally get to speak with you. You've been an inspiration to a lot of us in terms of creating our own radio shows and getting the word out. My question, my statement to you was, down here in Florida, they have been playing on the race a lot, and it has led to a lot of civil unrest. But recently, I've realized that it wasn't about the racial split. Now on all the news, it's all about the gun laws. It's all about the stand your ground. So
No, exactly. They're going to racialize, I've already seen this, owning guns. That's what Fast and Furious was. Gun owners are killing Mexicans, or you know, that's the talking point. Exactly. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And what I was going to ask you is, what angle do you think they're going to take with Aaron Hernandez, the New England Patriots star, which is essentially the same thing as George Zimmerman?
They're already saying he's a white Hispanic who killed a black guy, but nobody's buying it. They know it was all a bunch of thugs. And, I mean, if you just look at that whole culture in the NFL, that's another thing. Why do we allow NFL people to act like thugs? They should have, I mean, our role models, are you concerned about them trying to make role models thugs now?
Yeah, I think, what are the role models today?
They're thugs.
They're thugs. They're thugs, and that's being done by design.
And I don't care if they're black, white, Hispanic. They all act like a bunch of thugs on the street now. Because I'm going to tell you, if I'm in a gas station and see some white thug guys, I immediately, you know, get threatened. Black, Hispanic. I don't think that's a black guy. I think that's a thug, if they're acting like a thug. You can automatically see a black guy, clean cut, nice. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Polite. You can see a white guy, clean cut, nice. Hey, buddy, how you doing? But you see a thug, you know, the wife beater, the whatever, bugging their eyes out at you. That's the problem, is the thug culture, the thug life.
Right, and they want to use this. You know, if you look at the unfortunate circumstances down in Florida, you know, in our Constitution, you are granted the right to a defense. You're presumed innocent, and you can have a defense. Well, that doesn't give the prosecution the right to come up with a fable or create something out of thin air.
Skip this break. We're going to the bottom of the hour. Go ahead.
That isn't there. You have to look at what happened down there. That was a crime. Now, following him, not following him, you know, that could.
Do you think he was stupid to follow him?
I think he was stupid. I wouldn't have done it, but I could change it. What would happen if this was your house, your wife was home, this guy had a real intent to do bodily
The neighbor had been home invaded.
Right.
See, that's the problem with crime going up. You get charged up. That's why you can judge cops, but they're charged up all day.
Right. Well, but taking it to the example, if he stopped an individual that was going to do such a grievous offense,
Be a hero.
He'd be a hero. But this turns into a fight. It turns into a fight.
Well, the media made it one.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, there is reasonable suspicion. If a black guy would have killed a white guy he thought he was suspicious, I would have said reasonable suspicion. I mean, you don't send somebody to jail unless it's open and shut.
Well, you know, look, everybody's responsible for their actions. Just like Zimmerman, and more so because he was armed, well, so was Trayvon, responsible for his actions. Everybody's responsible for their actions.
Well, the argument is he had a bag of Skittles, but all the witnesses are saying he attacked him. He climbed on top of him.
And they try to lose sight of that to turn it into an issue that they want to turn it into.
Well, I mean, here's the issue. When I was 17, I was pretty aggressive and stuff. And if I was walking through and, you know, somebody said, what are you doing? and came up to me, I'd probably say, what the hell are you doing with a gun? I mean, I can get that, but I wouldn't punch somebody.
Well, here, let's look at that same scenario. If that were, if this was a 110-pound female who was getting her head bashed into a curb and she shot this individual, this would not even be in a courtroom. This wouldn't even be happening.
I agree with the defense attorney that this wouldn't have been an issue if Zimmerman would have been black.
Most likely not. I hate to say that.
Who's at fault, the media for making it racial?
I think the media does a big part of it. They like to hop it up and make it racial. And, you know, this is going to be what the prosecution is going to use. They want to hit an emotion in you to cloud your judgment, cloud your thinking.
Well, what about Trayvon, though? Because I look at the photos he put out himself with the grill and the thug look and all that. Those are his photos. And then you see the IT guy saying, you know, there's photos of guns, loot, all this stuff, and then that's what he supposedly got in trouble in for school and the burglary tool, and then that's being withheld from the defense. I mean, it's starting to really not look too good here.
Well, you know, look, the bottom line is this is a terrible thing no matter how you cut it. You have a young man who lost his life. That's a terrible thing. But when you're sitting in that jury box, you have to put the facts to the law. And that's what everybody has to just realize. You know, that statue of justice holding the scales, got a blindfold on. You have to be blind to all these other factors. The actions either meet the law or they don't meet the law. And that's the only thing that these people could look at. So anything that's happening after this is being fueled for other political motivations.
That's right. And it's easy to Monday morning quarterback that jury, but when you're about to put somebody in jail for life, you're really going to look at the facts.
You have to.
I mean, I followed it some every day, seen it in the news, but I mean, just looking at the prosecution, clearly hiding evidence. If the guy was Charlie Manson, he's got to walk, because you can't start cheating people even if you think they're guilty in a trial.
Well, and I don't know the particulars of Florida law. I know in some jurisdictions you cannot bring in prior criminal history into a case, so I don't know how that's going to play out down there. I don't know what their statutes call for. But the bottom line, you know,
well, they cut out the phone taken from his dead body had the gun and all the stuff on it. Recent photos. So the issue is they didn't give that to the defense. Their head IT guy was fired a few days ago for leaking it. Right. And he said, I'm not going to jail for lying about this.
Right. And again, I think there's some problems down there with the way they did things. Don't get me wrong.
Well, look at the police chief. He said that basically they were ordered to hand the case over.
I know. I heard that. I mean, that's what I was trying to allude to earlier. If we can't get what we want in this court, we'll just take him somewhere else and take him somewhere else until we get what we want.
But I get why Obama did that as a gangster and his controllers. If you're in trouble and all this stuff's going on, you send down to the Justice Department to stir up racial animus, because that's a diversion for you. While we're all fighting with each other, he wins. John, anything else?
No, man. I just basically wanted to say thank you for everything you do. And so far down here in Florida, it's kind of calm. But no question, it's gun control being pushed.
Yeah, I mean, the White House is now saying, let's basically demonize guns and turn our guns in for Trayvon. He'll be the patron saint of victim disarmament.
That's been the ploy here for a lot of years, trying to figure out a catalyst to have that happen.
What do you think would happen in 6 months if they armed all the non-criminal background families in Chicago and taught them how to use the guns? I think you'd see a bloodbath of criminals being killed, and then the crime rate would plunge to almost nothing like it is in high gun areas. I would agree. Every study points to every time you arm the people that the violent crimes go down, and precipitously they go down. Look, there's nothing wrong with having a good guy on the street with a gun. There just isn't. You know, in Arizona, we have the most liberal gun laws you could have. I mean, you don't even need a permit now to carry a concealed weapon. We treat everybody as if they're armed. That doesn't mean we treat you different. We just know it. We know that you have one. Even if you don't, we know that you have one. And we just deal with it accordingly. But there's no cop on the street that is ever afraid of a law-abiding citizen with a firearm. Well, look at all the examples you never see in the news. I mean, they'll be local where the cops are pinned down and the citizen from across the street shoots the bad guy. And you won't see a lot of those out there. Or you'll hear in that news press that they're reviewing the case for possible charges against the citizen. Are you kidding me? Just about every statute in the country has coming to the aid of another individual in a fight for their life. Well, exactly. The media tries to act like it was wrong. Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Or some guy breaks and enters, and the woman's on 911, and they go, don't shoot him, and then she shoots him, and they go, well, they're looking at charges.
Yeah.
But of course they don't. But and it's not the police saying they're looking at charges. The media says, well, they're reviewing it, and they spin that to mean it's incredible.
Well, the last one that happened with that the mother home with her child, and she shoots the guy as he's coming in the attic door or something like that, or the closet door. I mean, she only had 5 rounds, I believe. That's a case where I wish she had 15, because he crawled out and went down the street. That job wasn't finished, you know. So you can make a case for self-defense in today's time. It takes more than 1 or 2 bullets.
And you've got to have something to match whatever they're able to get.
Yes.
When you minimize the citizens, you're going to be law-abiding down to 1 round, 6 rounds. Like in Australia, it's 1 round. Well, the bad guys aren't going to follow the law.
You know, Alex, I had the privilege today. A gentleman took me down to see the Alamo, and they took me to that IMAX movie theater. And I watched that film for 48 minutes. And aside from everything else that film speaks to you about the bravery of these people, seeing what 1 round does, 1 round stops 1 person. And if it's a grazing wound, it stops nobody. 1 round's not going to cut it. 2 rounds aren't going to cut it. Today, you get homes where doors are kicked in and 3 or 4 bad guys come in at the same time. You know, you're not going to do it with 3, 4, 5 shots anymore. You know, there's a reason why police officers are armed with high-capacity automatics today than like the day when I started, when we had a 6-round 357 Magnum. Cops started to lose the gun battles because the bad guys were outgunned. You know, they're outgunning us. So you have to look and keep everything into perspective. And in today's society, unfortunately, an armed citizen is the safest citizen.
Well, that's why a lot of people say, don't let the cops have, semi-autos, 30-round, 100-round. No, fine, just let me have that. Because, I mean, obviously they need that because other people are going to have it. Don't restrict me. Just you go ahead and have whatever you want, because bad guys, again, are not going to follow the law. Let's talk to Ryan in Texas. He has a question about me, so I guess we'll take it. But go ahead.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy, go ahead. Welcome.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do, and you're just a major role model for my life. I'm 19, about to turn 20, and been going organic since I've seen everything about your GMOs and everything. And just really wanted to ask you, like, how could I help out my community more? Like, how did you start off?
You can help out your community by studying history, common sense, and volunteering for the Salvation Army, being nice to your family, working hard, being a good person. Just being a good person makes the world better. People think we've got to all save the world overnight ourselves. Being a good person will do it. But then, you'll get better as you go. Start a YouTube channel. Don't have to put your face up there. Put a world map up or whatever and talk about issues, get feedback, and be confident. Because so many good people think it's kind of like non-arrogant to not be confident acting. Be bold, because the bad guys are bold. And just get it. But start, I mean, people ask, what do you do? Really, it starts with being a good person. Do you have any recommendations?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, look, you want to be a good person, you have to start acting like a good person. You have to do, and it's that old Bible, saying, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. You have to be conscious of other people and where they're at. And whenever you're in contact with anyone, and just be respectful. It's that kind word that turns away wrath. Just be respectful. And people will come to appreciate you for that. And
that's what I'm working on I'm working on when somebody does something wrong to me, not getting mad right away.
Yeah, I have that issue too. And you were
going to say something, interrupted? Go ahead.
It just flew out of my head, brother.
I mean, you're saying that kind word diffuses things. That kind
word does. And when people start, you're going to find out you'll have a better influence with people. People will start looking to you. They'll start talking to you about certain things. And I'm going to tell you, and I've taken a lot of bad guys down to jail. And this is going to sound really strange. There's maybe a handful I didn't like, but when you start having some conversations with these people and some of them start telling you some of the things they went through, doesn't make an excuse for what they did. But boy, you really get a feeling for what life struggles they have to endure. And when you start to hear this, you'll start, with my opportunities, you get to hear the same kind of stories then repetitively. And you can find out, all right, this is where these issues are. And then maybe you could help find solutions to some of these problems like you're trying to do. Exactly,
because so many low-level criminals are in a bad situation. They've been pushed into it. They don't even like it. That's why I hate the white-collar, really slick psycho ones. They're the ones that really know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
And they're running the show.
They do. And you have these other individuals that are out there, and a lot of it stems back to the family. You know?
No, exactly. Fathers and mothers at home, 4 times more likely to not end up in prison.
Yes.
If you got a dad at home. So why is the media attacking the dad?
It's destruction of the family.
These are sick people. Mike Zullo, you're a really impressive guy in person. Great job with your cold case posse. You'll be back on the Nightly News tonight. Infowars.com, folks. Stay with us.